All right, we are live and rolling. What's happening, YouTube and the internet? We are back live and inside the lab. Apologies about the double notification you may have gotten. The Restream decided to get a little wonky when I was setting up the live stream, and a double notification may went out. But either way, if you had set the reminder, you are on the right live stream as the subject of this live stream actually, on top of it being our normal community live stream, just a place you could just come in and hang out and talk about all things PC gaming and just tech or gaming in general, even if it is on consoles. What we commonly, if you're new around here, or if you're new to the stream, or you're watching the replay, one thing we kind of preach around here is that, well, it you consoles have a purpose, but PCs have character. So all that matters is whatever you're getting your gaming fix on. All that matters is that you're getting the experience that you desire from whatever game that is you play, rather that is like, single player story driven games. Like that's some of my favorite kind of games, like um story driven RPG games. Multiplayer games are okay. Like I never really played a lot of multiplayer games. Only here recently with the advent of Battle Royale, if you will, have only really started like really jumping in and call myself one to be competitive in games like Warzone and Fortnite, which I don't play competitively anyway. When I'm playing with friends, I feel like it's a much better competitive environment. But when I'm playing by myself, I'm normally just playing for fun. And on top of that, when I'm, benchmarking, I'm definitely just trying to, capture accurate metadata based on whatever the graphics card it is that I'm working on. So, I mean, with that out the way, if you're new here, if you have any questions during the live stream, please go ahead and ask them at any time. I do enjoy engaging with the community, especially here during our weekly our weekly live streams, which are every Saturday. For right now, we are doing a 10 live streaming experiment. If you're watching on the replay, we are doing a 10 video or 10 live stream experiment to see what's the best format that resonates the most with you guys and girls, the audience, and what's a good time to just stream in a day, or not good, because it really there won't be a perfect day and time. I'm here on the East Coast. We have friends and fam all over the world. So trying to find a balance between my time zone and YouTube does give us a helpful tool that kind of gives us an idea of when our general audience is online. So I generally try to structure the live stream somewhere in between the data that YouTube provides, and just from my experience with engaging with some of you here on the channel. So if If you're new here, we normally like to start the live streams off with a little bit of house cleaning. Last week we hit 2,000 subscribers. We're still growing, pretty fast or at a steady rate. Um, I mean, I appreciate every single one of you. We are well on our way to 3,000 and our by year's end goal of about 4,000 subscribers. We really want to see this community really take off and just, share helpful tips and ways that we can get other, other gamers on a PC platform, even if it's to use as a secondary rig to complement their console. A general argument that I normally see, which I totally understand, and that is that most console users they share the sentiment that most of their friends all play on console, but most competitive games have gone cross-platform, and I believe I saw and a friend of mine's post on my timeline that Apex Legends now is cross-platform. So if you can confirm that, if you're here on the live stream, if you can confirm that here in the chat, let me know. If you're here on the replay, we likely would have found out by now. But with some of these popular games going multi-plat, it begs the question, is it time to maybe jump on a PC platform, even if you are playing with friends and family, but this will give you a competitive advantage, with reduced input lag, and on top of that, more competitive FPS, depending on your setup or depending on your system. So that's just an option that you have. But yeah, we're growing. This community is growing. We are in exciting times in terms of upcoming console releases and just new GPU hardware in the form of the RTX 3080. I did a couple videos on them. Um, you can find them down in the basement. Again, if you're new here to the live stream, the basement is the description box. You may regularly hear me call it the basement. So, that's where my generation, that's where we generally hung out. That's where we played NBA Live and just some of the OG Maddens, Super Smash, things like that. But the extra bit of fun is down in the basement. So you can find those videos down there. It is part of the Vlogtober, if you will, event that I'm kind of taking place to just to add more personality to the channel with upcoming build videos, which we will get into more here on the live stream. So be sure to hang around for that. And if you're new here on the live stream, be sure to hit the like button for us. It really helps get the content out to new eyes. And also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hopefully during this live stream, I'm either entertaining enough or helpful enough to have earned your subscription. And the same thing remains to be seen with my friends and fam here on the live stream. And I see we have Trant. Sorry if I'm butchering that. He gives. I think that's the peace sign emoji. Peace back up to you. How you doing this Saturday morning? I forgot to give you guys the weather. All right, what's the weather? I forgot to give you guys the weather. So it is a little cloudy. It looks like it wants to rain here in my neck of the woods. I am in the eastern part of the United States of America, right here in Maryland, and I'm okay with this kind of weather. I welcome it. Honestly, it's a little gloomy, but that's okay. Like to me, this is some of the best weather. Just hang out inside, drink a little coffee, play some video games, create some content. I don't know. You tell me that you tell me in the comment section what tell me at some point how do you enjoy your Saturdays, and um, what's the weather like in your area? What's going on in your neck of the woods? So, all right, well, with all of that out of the way, let's jump into the core topic of this live stream, right? Which kind of feels like a podcast, right? I'd imagine so. I'm not a podcaster, but it kind of feels like a podcast. Take it for however you will. I mean, we're here, we're live. I want to get personal. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to the community. I want to see, what's going on. I want to see what's happening. But we're talking about the Zen 3 keynote that took place on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which was about 12 noon Pacific Eastern Standard Time here for me. Um, I did watch it. I was originally had planned on doing a companion live stream, to watch it live and react, but it's hard to determine the strength of audience viewership at that time of the day. So I'm going to save it for a little bit of recap here during this live stream, and also with Monday's upcoming video. Which again, if you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe with the notification bell. Shameless plug. That way you can catch those notifications. Let's jump over to the chat. I see we have Demetrius. Demetrius, it's good to see you. It was good talking to you too. I am going to get you my email too. He says I need to stop wasting time and get my chores done. Yeah, that's I agree. I try to get them done during the week. So no, I did say I'd try, right? Kim's like getting ready to look at me like, yeah, right. But I'm with you. But here, I want to get them done during the week so I can have more time on the weekend doing cool stuff like this. And Tron says very good, man. I haven't been gaming for 3 weeks. Sold my 2080 Ti Strix way too early. And the website I use for graphics cards never stocked the 3080 or 3090. So my Saturdays is YouTube and Netflix. Okay, well, I mean, I personally enjoy gaming, and I would prefer to game versus streaming, but those are two really entertaining platforms to spend your Saturday. I am super hooked and addicted to YouTube. I not only create content on the platform, but also I consume it, and you'd be surprised. I don't watch a lot of the content in my niche unless it's to help me stay informed and educated, and that way I'm providing the correct information for you. But most of the time I like watching just some just random things on YouTube, or like alternative news or story driven based content. I am a comic book fan, so I can't really get that fixed on my computer, and I don't have as much time to watch like physical comics anymore. So here recently I followed some big Comics Explained, a few YouTube channels, a few YouTubers, um, and they provide like really engaging comic book storylines, and help you stay current on some of the most current storylines, although Marvel doesn't really follow them. No shame on Marvel, but not like Marvel really follows the I'm not gonna go there. Marvel don't follow their comic lines. That's a good thing and a bad thing. DC with or Warner Brothers doesn't either, and we're going off topic. But I Netflix and YouTube, those streaming platforms are really, I mean, they're really good time consumers, time killers. Demetrius says congrats on the sponsor too. Yeah, absolutely. TubeBuddy is a sponsor here on the channel. I am an affiliate. If you are if you're ever interested in starting a YouTube channel or growing an audience, I am a TubeBuddy affiliate. You can sign up. The app is completely free, and it just integrates into your web browser. But the app is completely free, and it does help you, grow your audience and just grow your YouTube channel. It's helped me focus in on, finding the right keywords to resonate with the right people here on the platform, and it's really helping me grow a community. It's really helping me just build an audience, and just helping me be a better creator because of the network of other creators on the platform. Just really awesome people, just really awesome people. They also hooked me up with a legend subscription, so shout out to TubeBuddy. Tron says I learned to detach my addiction of gaming, albeit I want a new GPU for Cyberpunk 2077. That was the whole idea. Yeah, I mean, again, nothing wrong with that, with moderation with all things. But I am hyped for Cyberpunk 2077. 2077. I have some content planned around the game. Like I do want to do a Cyberpunk build, run a system at minimum spec to see how well the game plays at City Project City Red's own minimum specifications, which I think it was like really low. Like even I was surprised. But it that's I mean that's a good thing. I just imagine Cyberpunk is probably going to be, excuse me, a really addictive game, right? And it's going if it's anything like The Witcher, like The Witcher 3. Like tell me, Tron, if you played The Witcher 3 in the chat, or to any tell me if you played The Witcher 3 in the chat. The Witcher 3 is a really long game. I've played it. I've probably sunk over 100 and 200 200 hours, maybe even 300 hours. into The Witcher 3, and I really don't think I've scratched the surface. Like I really don't. That game just feels like every time you do one quest, you like discover three more, but then also like two new locations. It's just it can be overwhelming at times. That's why I never really finish it. But I do play when I want like a hardcore medieval like gaming experience. But The Witcher 3 is just a really long game. So if 2077 is anything learn like how The Witcher 3 was structured in terms of exploration and RPG elements and just the RPG narrative as a whole, then I can only imagine that Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be a really really long game. Demetrius says Witcher 3 played it 3 times, and I guess he's completed the entire game. Wow, yeah, I see. I don't have that much. I don't have that much time to play it and play. I'm like a really slow paced gamer. Like I read slow when I'm gaming. I try to take all the lore in, but that's awesome. Demetrius says he played it, beat it in the DLCs this year, loved it. Yeah, the DLCs are really great. I haven't even had a chance to play the DLCs. I just knew before I went full in when I ditched my consoles, before I went full in, I know there were a specific set of games that I wanted to play on a PC, right? And one of them was one of them was The Witcher 3. It was out on the consoles at the time. Like I had it in my hand one day at a GameStop, and I was like, something tells me I should wait to play this. Like I shouldn't play it on. It was a PlayStation at the time, but I had it on my hands, and I put it back on the shelf. But The Witcher 3 was one of them that I wanted to wait at the time when I had a PS4. My last game, my last game that I had bought for the PS4 was The Order 1866 or 1886, the last PS4 exclusive. I mean, that was the last PlayStation game I bought. And at the time, I was just like, no, I'll wait to play GTA 5 on PC. I'll wait to play. At the time with Skyrim, the remastered edition, I wanted to play that on PC. There were just a whole. There are other games I just wanted to play on PC, and so I waited. I joined the Witcher 3 party like real late. I'm not gonna lie, like no cap. I joined the Witcher 3 party really late. Um, so Demetrius, that's Chant123 says, yeah, played it. Tron, I'm sorry, Tron says, luckily Cyberpunk is a smaller scale due to nobody finished it, so they reduced the main story. I'm welcoming that. Like, I work, I create content full time, I earn a full time living, and I am a full time parent. Okay. Lab is a little old. I just sent off my oldest son this morning. So, that was interesting. But I have several full-time obligations, and gaming isn't one way I earn a living. It is very much a hobby, part of this hobby, but it is not a source of revenue for me. So it kind of takes it is the only part-time activity I make time for. But I welcome a reduced main story. I really do. Now that I've gotten older and my time isn't as disposable, I enjoy games that are pretty much straightforward to the point. Games like Uncharted. I do miss games like Uncharted. Wow, I miss playing Uncharted. Uncharted was probably the last good game I played overall. Although the last entry wasn't all that great. But the Uncharted series is just a well-paced, story-driven game that has like action and The Last of Us. Sorry, and The Last of Us. I stand corrected. The Last of Us was amazing. The first one. No comment on the second one. It's just I kind of I realized that that story wouldn't have made too much sense when they announced that they were releasing the part two, and the direction they were going in. But the first Last of Us was just an amazing gameplay experience. But yeah, I do welcome that with those games going, you know, reducing their reducing their story and just making the game overall shorter. I welcome that. But all right, let's get back on track of the live stream, but definitely keep the chat live. Let's keep it engaging. Any more questions or anything extra you want to add at any point, drop it down in the chat. Be sure to give the stream a like when you join in or before you leave. I definitely do appreciate it. But let's talk about Zen 3, right? So AMD released or AMD announced, what everybody most I talked to some members in the audience where I released a video that's titled, AMD Zen 3, This is the Way, right? And I wanted to title that video AMD Ryzen 5000. This is the way, but while it really looked like AMD was going with the 5000 series, I just wasn't sure. So I stuck to what I definitely knew it was going to be, and that's the Zen 3 architecture. And the Zen 3 architecture is here. AMD gave us information that had not yet been leaked, but most people kind of expected coming. The moniker of 5000 being one of them, and the confusion, if for the uninitiated, is that the 4000 series CPUs were pretty much already here in the form of APUs, but they were very much still on the Zen 2 architecture. They weren't Zen 3's chips, although they had, they had a generational upgrade from 3000 to 4000. They weren't, Zen 3 chips. So this is why most higher up tech firms and just tech tubers knew that it was going to be Ryzen 5000. And sure enough, here we are. We have the if you didn't catch the Lisa Su AMD keynote, we have the 5950X, all right? It's coming in at $799. The 5950X, 16 core, 32 thread CPU, 5800X, 8 core, 16 thread CPU, and a 5600X, 6 core, 12 thread CPU, and then the 5900X, right? 12 core, 24 thread CPU. One thing, let me just say right now, especially before I forget, I noticed that we didn't get a middle of the way skew, right? So no 5700X, no 5600, at least not yet anyway. No 5900. Like they're all just, just X or bust, right? We got no middle of the way skew. I I mean, I am blown away by what AMD what AMD has done with Zen 3. I mean, excuse me, I knew we were going to see really good gains because AMD is really refining that that 7 nanometer node, but I just knew that we were going to get some really good gains. And now what AMD done has essentially is they've changed the core complex, the CCX, the core modules on their CPUs, and they've gone from I believe a 4 core array to just a simple 8 core array, and they've unified the 32 megabyte L3 cache. So this is going to, at least in theory, until we can get our hands on these chips, better memory latency, and this is going to improve gaming performance, which this I imagine this is where AMD was able to squeeze out another 19% IPC, so instructions per cycle, on top of maintaining the same TDP. So all of the higher end SKUs, right, the 5950X, the 5900, the 5800X, all of those CPUs have 105 watt TDPs. The 5600X has 65 watt TDPs. So that's amazing what AMD has been able to accomplish, and the gains they've been able to squeeze out on that node, right? I mean, um, across the board, right? AMD saying, well, you can expect about with the 5900X. First they said like 26% over previous generation, which I mean, wow. That and just gaming. That's pretty amazing. Like that's pretty good. Just looking at the benchmarks here on the 5900X, which is a 12 core CPU. It's like, wow, are we at that stage now? Now we need 12 core CPUs for gaming? I mean, wow. Wow. So AMD is really positioning themselves, like I said, I believe in last week's live stream, to start offering a premium chip, right? Like they are ready to start offering a premium chip. Not only that, these prices have gone up. Let me jump over to the prices of Zen 3. Those prices have gone up. So that 19% IPC gain has come at a cost. It really has. It's only $50. Some argue that it's legit legit okay for AMD to up their prices on Zen 3 based off the 19% IPC increase alone and the performance boost we're getting out of, you know, just across the whole product stack. You look at the TDP. Here you go, right here, 105 watts. And yeah, I believe the 3950X that was Zen 2's 16 core 32 thread CPU was 749. It's now at 799. The 3900X last year released, it was $499, which still was an amazing value at the time because Intel had the 10 core, their 10 core i9 10900K. Then the 5800X again, about four about $400 higher. Or I'm sorry, 40 about $49 higher. And then 5600X, which is definitely $49 higher. So prices have gone up, but so has performance. Why would AMD catch static for that? I'm not really sure. I mean, they're still, and during the keynote, Lisa Su, or I believe it was their one of their strategists or engineers had mentioned that Zen 4 5 nanometer Zen 4 is still on its way. Right? We're still getting 7 nanometer, 5 nanometer. I can't talk today. 5 nanometer Zen 4 CPUs. So I can only imagine like this that could be the time where we get to see an AMD CPU finally, breaking the 5 gigahertz mold. Um, some people wanted to see across the tech industry and just in the tech community in general. Some people wanted to see, 5 gigahertz AMD finally bring us a true 5 gigahertz CPU with good IPC, good clock speed. It remains to be seen. The 5900X Max Boost Turbo, I believe, is 4.8 gigahertz. Right? It's like there. That is definitely single core. That is not all core. I Wow. Wow. I just want to say, don't quote me on this, but I'd imagine even on a CLC, so that's a closed, it's a custom loop on a 240 rad, something to that extent. I mean, you have to have adequate cooling to maybe on a 12 core, especially AMD, maybe get 4.4, 4.5, to get a stable overclock to sustain those clock speeds, and that way you won't get any throttling. My understanding and just from doing research on say Zen 2, for example, even AMD was encouraging users to not overclock their CPUs. Even the better bin executed CPUs, AMD was encouraging them not to overclock them, just to, let XFR just let the CPU's turbo to its maximum clock speed. It would give a better experience in gaming, which is still very much single core dominant. And this is why IPC is important. So this is how AMD is able to get those numbers. Sorry, pull my notes. I mean, she AMD was really throwing a lot of numbers at us, and a 19% IPC increase. That was the first thing that Lisa Su started off with that had me like really hyped for the rest of the keynote. I'm like, wow, AMD is not playing. AMD is also switching to um, AMD sorry, I'm looking at Dizzy's comment, which I wanted to welcome you on the live stream, Dizzy. I believe you haven't joined us before. Welcome to the live stream. And Dizzy says AMD recommends an AIO, as it says on its website. Well, the some of the Zen 2 chips, did come with air coolers, but none of the XT CPUs did. And I believe the 3950X and the 3900X didn't come with air coolers. I mean, I would imagine you would want to use an AIO on those CPUs because you are likely doing more than just gaming. So you want those sustained clock speeds under CPU intensive loads or AVX intensive loads. If you're encoding video, if you're a streamer, or if you're a 3D animator. I have a buddy of mine's 3D animator. He just recently, a couple months ago, bought a 3950X. He stands by it. I believe he is using an AIO, and he hasn't overclocked it. Again, I mean it's a 16 core. It's a 16 core, and while AMD has refined the 7 nanometer node, right, they still have a little bit of work to do. But I'm really blown away by uh, the 24%, I believe it's 24% power improvement or power efficiency over Zen 2 to Zen 3. Um, while we laugh at Intel, right, for milking the 14 nanometer node, and Intel too still finds a way to just pull out more and more IPC with each of their CPU each generation of their CPUs on the same 14 nanometer node, while here AMD they're refining that 7 nanometer node, and they're getting good yields and good gains while also lowering the power draw or keeping them the same. They're also keeping the core amounts the same. Which, on a side note, I thought Lisa Sue was, when she was like, "We got one more surprise." I thought we were going to get that 10 core, maybe 50, 59, 20x maybe, or something to that extent. It would have been nice to get a 10 core, 20 thread CPU that just really competes head on with the i9 10900K. Intel is on plan to launch their Rocket Lake 11th gen CPUs. Right, let me go back to my let's jump back to my training window here. Per PC Mag. I mean, Intel is on schedule to release Rocket Lake. So it will be on 14 nanometers plus however many pluses. But it will be on 14 nanometers. And the biggest, I don't want to say surprise, because really most tech enthusiasts, we kind of wanted this a while ago. Although Z 490 motherboards technically do support PCIe 4.0, the CPUs do not. But Rocket Lake, Intel is looking to rectify this, because Rocket Lake is on board to come and ship with support for PCIe 4.0 compliant input output on the actual 11th gen CPUs themselves. This is what I am torn between as far as creating, upgrading my personal rig, which I did say I'm going to talk about that more on this live stream, because a couple times we've had a couple questions like, "Hey, Lab, what are you using for your system, or what is your base system?" While I do have multiple system configurations, I have one system that I like truly rely on. That is my go-to system for creating content, right? I enjoy using Ryzen. The price to performance, the value is phenomenal for what you get. But my go-to system, my base system, is a Coffee Lake 6 core. And just looking at the 19% IPC gain, while an 8700K was still faster than a 3600X in gaming, although within 4 to 5 frames, it's not that much, right? It's not that much. It's the value that, because of the cost, right? What makes the 3600 and the 3600 special is its cost. The 3600, I believe, yep, the 3600, see if I can find it. It's $209 CPU if you want the 3600X. But if you don't want to overclock, which with these CPUs, I recommend you just let it auto overclock, let it turbo up to its, based on your cooling solution and how much hot air is inside your case, or if you're using a case. If you don't use a case, that's okay too. I actually, my one of my favorite systems to play around with and just mess around with is a test box system. What you've seen in the videos, I like to use a test box. So, but open air cases are cool nonetheless. They do have custom open air cases. But look at this, a Ryzen 5 3600 for here locally in the states. This is Micro Center. Okay, Micro Center often offers lower prices than some e-tailers simply because they don't ship. But they are they are pretty they are pretty nationwide. So, if you're here on the states, there's two by me here in Maryland. There's a few over in PA. But $179, that's an incredible price of performance, especially if you want to go new, because you wouldn't pay that price for a new, for an 8700K. An 8700K, I believe, when it launched was 349 or 399, something to that extent. So you would ask yourself, is it worth paying the extra couple $100s for a new motherboard? I'm not even going to get into that in this live stream. We talk about it enough in this video. AM4 offers a great upgrade platform. Depending on your chipset, which we are going to talk about here in a second during this live stream, jump over to the chat. Okay, I see I have Ron Richards. Finally made it on the live stream. What's up, bro? He says, congratulations on the sponsorship, Terrence. Keep it up. He called me Terrence. He normally don't call me Terrence. He calls me T. So that's funny. Thank you, man. Thank you for finally coming on the live stream. Um, we've been trying to convert Myron over to the PC, to the PC platform for a while now. Hopefully this is the year he's ready to switch because prices are prices are looking really good, especially with Zen 2, which still offers plenty of price to performance. Although that 19% IPC uplift and the performance gain you get from switching from, say, an XT, which if you brought an XT, I'd be really curious to know why. But just from XT and Zen 2, AMD said 28% performance uplift from those CPUs. That is amazing. That makes it. I mean, if you're on OG Zen, it's a Zen 1 CPU, so like a 16 any 1000 series CPU, and you have an AM4, a higher end AM4 chipset motherboard, even if it's a B450 or an X470 motherboard. But if you bought your motherboard at first generation, so if you have like an A320 or a B350 or an X370 motherboard, here's the deal: you won't be able to use a Zen 3 CPU, right? You're pretty much capped off at Zen 2. But AMD has offered support on select few motherboards. I'm actually interested to know when we can get that list. But AMD has, um, you know, recanted their statement previously that, oh well, we won't be supporting 400 series chipsets with Zen 3, and the community gave AMD a lot of outlash for that, and so they changed their statement around and said, well, we will support Zen 3 on AM4. It'll just be on select motherboards, right? But the good thing is, if you have bought an X470 motherboard or a B450 motherboard, you can use the BIOS flashback tool, right? And it's again, you can't use it. I mean, you can't use Zen 3 on an X370 motherboard. But here's the thing: if you're looking at a Zen 3 CPU, like if you've been holding back and you're on like a fourth generation Intel CPU, or you're still on the FX series, I mean, now is the time to upgrade. And if you're looking at Zen 3, if you're looking at a 5000 series motherboard or a 5000 series CPU, I'm sorry, and you're willing to, to jump in, go all in your gaming experience, or you're ready to start creating content, then now is the time to look at the X570 chipset, right? I mean, if I was you, I'd highly recommend you look at the X570 chipset. If you're going with the Zen 2 CPU, well, you can go with an X470, X470, X370 motherboard. Now, even on current X500 series motherboards, users will still need a BIOS update, right? So you will still need to update the BIOS to support the Zen 3 CPUs. And you can use the BIOS flashback feature on motherboards. It's really neat. Like, you don't need a CPU and RAM to update the BIOS. So it's really cool. It can be nerve-wracking, and I understand if you never done it before, but here locally, I offer services very similar to updating your BIOS and doing things of that nature, replacing thermal paste. If you're uncomfortable doing those things, and you just at the end of the day want your system to turn on, then you get other people to do it for you. It's that plain simple. I'm no mechanic, you know. I like working with my hands. I'm good with computers, but I'm no mechanic. I pay other people to make sure my car is reliable. I'm willing to front that cost. But you can. Here's a list of. I did find a list of X370 and 400 series and 300 series motherboards that do support BIOS flashbacks, and their prices, which would be a little lower now, given that a lot of these motherboards have long launched. They're a little bit. little bit towards the end of their life cycle with newer chipsets coming out. I also do want to add, let me jump back here. I also do want to add that Asus, if you weren't on last week's live stream and you haven't caught some of the recent content, which if you haven't, again, I hate to drop this shameless plug, but hopefully during this live stream, I'm either helpful enough or entertaining enough and educational enough to um, earn your subscription, if you will, during this live stream. And also be sure to give the video a like if you're joining in. I want to jump over into the chat. So we have a question from Orlando Perez. Hola, amigo. Says, hello, new to the channel. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate you. Would you recommend upgrading a Ryzen 3700 to the new 5900, or should I wait for Zen 4? I'm not 100% happy with my motherboard, and I heard Zen 4 will have a new chipset. That's a really good question, Orlando. So let me start off by asking you, tell me in the comment section what chipset you're on and what motherboard you're currently using. The 3700, while it's a great 8-core 16-thread CPU, right? That's, for those who don't know, that is a Zen 2 part. So you have the 3700 and you have a 3800. The 3800 is just normally better bin. The 3700 offers a little bit more value because it costs less, but it's an 8-core 16-thread CPU, so it is ideal for video creation and just streaming. Or I also I also want to remind myself not to leave out my friends who are game developers and just software developers. I know we had Demetrius, who joined us today, who is a software developer. He develops websites. So if you want a reliable system that could just get it all done, especially game, 8 cores is a healthy place to start. Should you upgrade from a 3700 to the 5900X? Again, that depends on your chipset. Okay, I'm assuming you're on the 400 series. If you're interested in the 5900X, I'm assuming you're on a 400 series chipset. Um, it depends, in my opinion, Orlando, how much of your workload has changed since you built your system. How much will your workload change, say, in the next 6 months? Ask yourself, what do I plan on doing with my system? Do I just want to game, or am I interested in, starting a creative career, even if it is just on a hobby level? Do I want to stream? Am I going to really take advantage of those extra 4 cores and 8 threads? Because the 5900X, Orlando, would essentially be a $549 upgrade for you. So that's something you should ask yourself. What I plan on doing in the next 6 months, does it negate upgrading now to the 5900X? Or like you said, do I wait for Zen 4, which, yeah, I strongly do believe will be on a new chipset. It's one of the things I was surprised about, during the AMD keynote, was that there was no mention of the X670 and B4, B600 and A600 series motherboards. And like me and another member in the chat, or another member in the audience, had agreed on this because we really believe it's going to come with Zen 4. Now, what I would recommend is just hold on to your 3700X and see, what is there more to gain from making the upgrade, because you won't be able to take advantage of PCIe 4.0, which the 5900X does support. So that's something to consider. PCIe 4.0 does enable, I believe, twice as much bandwidth on the PCIe lanes. It can help in creative content work for coding on your video card and gaming and streaming. So you have to ask yourself, is that $549 worth what I plan on doing, or should I just hold out, wait for Zen 4 that's coming in the next quarter, and upgrade then? I would suggest the latter over the former, right? Because you're on a 400 series chipset. It's either you're going to buy a 5900X and an X570 motherboard and upgrade to Zen 4. I mean, that's an option too. So that's just one thing. And see, my cat's he's like bombing the live stream. I'm trying to ignore him, but Piper, all right, go Piper. All right, do something. All right, sorry about that. But yeah, Orlando, excellent question. possibly wait till you're ready to upgrade your chipset. Like you said, you're not 100% happy with your motherboard. If you're not 100% happy, the motherboard is one of the most important components of the system. It's not the most popular. That often tends to be like the video card and the RAM amount. It's not the most popular, but your motherboard is the most crucial. As you said, you're not 100% happy. That happened to me. My first motherboard, a choice I wasn't 100% happy with it. I kind of had buyer's remorse. But if you're not 100% happy with your motherboard, keep your current configuration. Even if you do upgrade to an X570 motherboard, you can still keep your current CPU. And Zen 4 is likely to work on 500 series motherboards. After that, I really don't think Zen 4 um, is going to support 400 series and 300 400 series motherboards. I really don't. That's an opinion, but given how given the direction AMD is going, it just looks like that's going to be the trend. Orlando, I hope that answers your question. If not, please keep them coming. Demetrius says, "What's up to Ron Richards?" I know we're all, I met Demetrius through Myron. Okay, a little bit of history. When me and Myron were curators of our game development studio, Outer Space Studios, a little bit of history, and I met Demetrius through Myron. So a little bit of friends hanging out going on there. I do appreciate you both being here. But yeah, um, Zen 3 in a nutshell, 19% more IPC. Instructions per cycle is important. It's three components that make a CPU fast or fast enough to do what you need to do. IPC, clock speed, and core count. Four core, eight threads are still is enough for gaming. Like Brian over at Tech Yes City, one of the tech tubers that has inspired me to create content in this media. He just did a video on how four core, eight thread CPUs are very much still relevant in 2020, especially if you're only gaming, even at 1080p. And you'd be surprised of the bottleneck that doesn't exist when you go off and you pair the combination with like a high end GPU. Orlando says, yeah, thank you. You're right on. I don't see my workload changing soon. Sometimes I just fall victim to the hype. Thanks for your answer. You're certainly welcome. It is my pleasure anytime. And believe it or not, I too myself, I fall for the hype oftentimes, but I do try to go in with just like a budget conscience spirit or mind. It's one of the things we advocate on this channel is just, budget conscious bills or just budget friendly bills and just not splurging in and just sticking with what you have until you've outgrown your needs. My son, right? My son, he uh he has just started exploring this realm of content creation, and he's outgrown the computer I built for them like last year, like already, like fast. And I've interchanged parts like on the fly, and he's just outgrowing his system much faster than I anticipated. But Orlando, you could really save some money, or maybe upgrade your GPU. Tell me, Orlando, what GPU you have paired with your 3700. I don't want to assume, but just when you're able to hold on to your money, there's other upgrade paths you could take. Say you could go with an aesthetic upgrade, so it's custom cables, maybe RGB fans. If you're a fan of RGB, you know, static light or the rainbow puke, whatever floats your boat. No judge here. This is a no judge friendly PC tech, realm. So if you're new here to the channel, that's what you can expect. No judge here. All systems are welcome, even the higher end ones. But I am what myself and Brian over at Tech Yes City likes to say. We are used PC enthusiasts, but when it comes to new price to performance, it simply cannot be ignored. And AMD upping their CPUs $50, in my opinion, honestly, not a bad thing. The fact that AMD is even able to stick to the AM4 socket for as long as they have is just enough to want to congratulate them. And I'm no fanboy by any means, none. I see have Tech 215 says, "Sup, dude? What's happening, fam? Welcome to the stream. I don't believe we met as well. So welcome to the stream. And if you're new here, I see we had a few more heads join in. So tell me where you're watching from. Tell me down in the chat where you're watching from, what's going on in your neck of the woods, How is your Saturday going? We are talking Zen 3, the Zen 3 keynote that Dr. Lisa Su revealed on Thursday. Thursday, that was 10 a.m. Pacific. Doesn't matter. Time's irrelevant. All that matters is November 5th, right? It's 215. Yeah, my bad. 215. All right, respect. All right, Tech 215. I like how that rolls off the tongue too. Cool, cool. But yeah, we're talking Zen 3. And a second ago we were talking X470 and B470 motherboards. Let me jump back here to our webpage. We were talking X470 and 300 series motherboards and motherboards that have BIOS flashbacks. If you're on an older chipset, if you do have an X300 motherboard or a B400 series motherboard, don't get rid of it. Don't get rid of it. Please don't get rid of it. Either update your BIOS to support, Zen Plus or Zen 2 CPUs and upgrade. If you're on a 1700X or a 1700 or an 1800X or a 1600 AF or a 1600X, which is a CPU, is a 6-core 12-thread CPU, uh, you can expect anywhere between a 10 to 20% performance boost a going from um, a, a first generation Zen to a Zen 2 or Zen Plus or Zen 2 CPU. Just use the BIOS flashback update. You don't need your RAM and CPU installed. It is a process. It's an ominous process because you can brick your motherboard if it's not done appropriately. But there are plenty of helpful guides, helpful tutorials on the web that can help you walk you through the steps. I personally, when I'm doing something like that early on, I like to just take it all in step by step by step by step. But generally, you just need a USB flash drive, which I had the one I used to buy me, the one I used to update my BIOS here for clients and my builds. It's one of the first things you want to do to your if you're especially if you're buying a used part or if you're buying a used motherboard, you're going to get, especially on the Ryzen platform, you're going to get better memory support, better optimized drivers, chipset drivers, things of that nature, better potential for overclocks. But you need a USB drive. You format it to a FAT 16/32, FAT 16/32 format. Download the BIOS, rename it. I mean, it's a couple steps, but it's pretty easy to follow. You just plug it in, turn your system off, but don't unplug it. But you plug it in, press the BIOS flashback on the back of the motherboard. Hold it for 3 seconds or 5 seconds. It really depends on the motherboard manufacturer, which I always recommend you stick to like vehemently. If you're buying a used motherboard, we talked about this on the live stream last week's Saturday live stream. If you're waiting for your parts to come in the mail, or that that you have your eye set on a specific motherboard, if you're buying it used from eBay or if you're linking up, you're where I like to hang around, and that's the Facebook marketplace. If you know the motherboard you want to get, do your homework on the motherboard before you go get it. Do your homework on it. Find out, you know, are there any unforeseen issues you may have not accounted for before you start building, right? Is the motherboard going to be compatible with the case you already have? That's important. That's very important. It's a conversation I have off platform when I'm consulting clients here locally and like on Twitter and the DMs and what have you, is that most people don't account for. They say, "Well, I still want to use my case, but I want this motherboard." I'm like, either the motherboard doesn't have the necessarily input output headers to support the USB generation, right? Or it's just the case doesn't promote good airflow. Either way, do your homework on your parts. Look up the motherboard BIOS. See what's the latest version, right? That's super important. Yeah, Tech215 says my dude. Yeah, all good. And Demetrius says, well, he says, what's up to Tech215? Yeah, love the conversation in the chat. I do appreciate it. This is a friendly community here, right? We welcome all types, gamers, even my console friends. We welcome all kinds of gamers, and you know, speaking of, oh, well, let me segue into testing a little bit because to, I am going to look at Ryzen 5000 a potential in some form or capacity, an upgrade to the core system I use. Last week's live stream, I had talked about looking at a i9 9900K, which is an 8-core 16-thread CPU, phenomenal single thread performance, and could, has a max, I believe, turbo 5 gigahertz on a single thread. Can do a little past 5 gigahertz if you have the right cooling solution and the right setup. But it's a CPU I looked at upgrading from my 8700K because my video workload still is only very much 1080p. So I have very comfortable, encoding times and render times. And even when my videos, they're generally no more than 15, 20 minutes long, even when they are encoding, it's done in a matter of minutes. I normally would just go work on, say, the description, or I'll touch up the thumbnail, maybe do some pre-video post hype, hang out with you guys on Twitter. Which, if you're not following me, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Inside the Lab YT. Sorry about the shameless Twitter plug, but it's one platform here on the internet that you can kind of have direct access to me. I'm always active on Twitter. You can give me a mention, give me a follow, right? I'll check you out and even give you a follow back. Um, Twitter has always been in my heart since its boom and since its inception. I've always been a fan of Twitter and just its micro blog format. But yeah, I want to test Zen 3 versus Zen 2 CPUs and even Zen Plus because here soon, like even Orlando mentioned that they want to upgrade from a 3700 to a 5900X, which is a phenomenal upgrade path, but it's very costly. It's a $549, performance upgrade for a 26% performance in gaming and a massive uplift and content creation workflow with those extra cores. But like I recommend it if your workload doesn't call for the cost of that upgrade, it's best to just hang on to you've outgrown your workflow. That's currently where I'm at with my Coffee Lake system. That is codenamed Snow White, and I didn't do a dedicated video on this build because at the time I hadn't yet really decided to, be a content creator or be a YouTuber. I just hadn't decided on it yet. So, I built this system off camera and really fun. Don't get it twisted, but I built this system off camera and just kind of left it alone. I didn't really have to touch it. I just kind of switched GPUs from a 1080 Ti I had originally with it to an RTX 2080, and I do have a 2080 Ti. I just didn't pair it with this system because we're doing 4K test on it downstairs, which I am trying to still get my hands on an RTX 3080. I don't want to say I've given up, but I do want to say I'm like I mentioned in a recent video. If you've seen that video, I did mention I'm more so interested in the RTX 3070, and that's a GPU that I think is going to offer phenomenal value for money at that $499 price point. It just remains to be seen if there'll be enough to go around. AMD, not AMD, Nvidia pushed back the release of the RTX 3070 to October 29th. That's very important. The NVIDIA claims, well, we want to make sure we do our best to accommodate the needs of the gamers, right? So they push back production. They wanted to manufacture more cards, make them more available for their add-in board partners and what have you. But the caveat is this: AMD is set to release Big Navi, their RX 6000 series, right? They're set to reveal Big Navi on October 28th. So is that, poor timing on Nvidia's part, or is that like strategic timing on Nvidia's part? That remains to be seen, but there are there are countless reports coming in now that Nvidia is planning a 3080 refresh here in December. Again, I don't like to really comment on rumors because a rumor is a rumor until proven otherwise. And I did catch a little flack for the POS caps versus the MLCCs on the RTX 3080s being the reason why some of them were having these instability issues, and Nvidia patched it with the 4.5.655 driver update, which just slightly reduced the max turbo frequency. So, um, it's a trade-off that reports are coming in that you really didn't see a huge drop in performance, so that's a good thing. I wanted the RTX 3000 to succeed. I said that in the second, in the follow-up vlog. Jumping over to the chat, QVWU, we go back a little bit. QVW says any ITX mobiles there. Um, I don't know if he means like any X. There are X57, X500 series ITX motherboards. I was looking at an X500 series ITX motherboard, and that's I don't want to give too much insight, right? I don't want to give too much insight, but the system I do go with, it's going to be about like a three-part series. I'm going to walk you through my process of buying the system, ordering the system, how I do some of the research. It'll be a three-part series with like the live streams cut in between as like supplemental content, but I do plan on doing uh, doing a build series and ITX case I have, and I'm unsure if I want to go say, Rocket Lake, wait for Rocket Lake to do the ITX build, or go all in on PCIe 4.0 and the 500 series chipset, or wait for Zen 4. I do have a few 400 series and 300 series motherboards in the lab, but um, I also want to test the benefits, the pros and cons of PCIe 4.0. Jump over into the chat. Tricion says, Tricion is a long time follower here on the channel. Tricion has been a part of the lab fam since probably under 100 subscribers. Under 100 subscribers easy. He says, nice shirt and cup, bro. Yeah, too, buddy. If you're a creator, which Tricion, I know you are. Should holla at me if I think you are familiar with too, buddy. But if you have any questions about it, definitely hit me up. After the stream or even during the stream. This stream isn't content creation specific, but Two Buddy is awesome. They've helped me find the right audience and helped me resonate with gamers and creators who I share some of the same interests with. It's how I've found people like yourself, Ivan, and just some of the other awesome people here in this community. But what's up to you, man? Nice to see you here. Tech215 says I'm trying to grab data off of of a hard drive and my Z490 isn't booting. Going to throw it out the window. I bought it for a sleeper build. It's getting on my nerve. Oh wow. All right. I mean, I'm sure you've probably tried the necessary steps to try to get it to boot. Clearing CMOS, clearing your CMOS battery. That really sucks. I would say if all else fails, give it a chuck. Hang it on the shelf. All these parts on the shelf work actually, but you know, hang on the shelf or give it a chuck. But definitely run through some tests. Z490 boards, they're pretty high end. That definitely does suck though. Um, Tech215 says we're going to do a video together one day. All right, and so, yeah. Um, be sure to connect with me on Twitter. Again, that's at Inside the Lab YT. And I would love to talk more about that. Tricion says, yeah, I know what it is. I haven't really used it a lot though, and I'm here for the good content. You feel me? Yeah, I feel you, bro. 100%. 100%. 100%. And if you change your mind, I'm all ears. I'm still learning too myself. I more so could just point you to some of the people I've connected with there, if you're ever interested, or if anybody here is interested now during the live stream, and to my friends and fam that are on the replay as well. Tech215 says, "Are you from Philly?" No, but I grew up within close proximation. I know a lot of Philly friends. A lot of people I went to high school with was from Philly. Local friend of mine's from Chester, not Philly, but close enough. But I'm actually from Wilmington, Delaware. Not born there, but that's where I grew up at, Wilmington, Delaware. So it's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes from Philly though. Um, but yeah, all good stuff. Please keep them coming. But on the subject of updating my personal rig, I want to go all in with Intel Rocket Lake, but I'm also torn at how much price to performance AMD is offering with Zen 3 and Zen 2, which still offers, which still has nice SKUs. Um, Tech 215 says, nice. You said I live in Wilmington now, Trolley Square. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, they really done up Trolley Square. They really have. And when I was young, when I was going to the Del Tech Wilmington campus. I lived in Edgemore. Constantly was at Trolley Square. I mean, that's where that's where that's where a lot of the Dart routes land if you really want to get out of the city and go other places. And we normally had to walk from like West Fifth Street and Second and Franklin Street down to Trolley Square. But awesome. Yeah. Um, are you from Delaware? Tech 215? Curious. Curious. William Penn is my high school alma mater, by the way. But yeah, with my personal system, I'm torn between Zen 2 or not Zen 2, Zen 3. I've already told myself it's best that I'll skip over Zen 2 and just kind of go to a Zen 3 CPU for my personal use. Now, for testing purposes, I plan to go, to see as they come how the price changes on the used market for Zen 2 or just Ryzen in general. Like, what does this mean for users who are going to want to upgrade from 1000 series Ryzen CPUs? Are they going to flood the market? Are we going to see Ryzen 5 1600s for 1600Xs for like under $100? At that point, if you're looking to get into gaming and you're comfortable with going to used market, um, and you're comfortable going to used market, that's an option you could possibly look at. That you can pair a Ryzen 5 1600 or 1600X at 1080p with like a medium GPU, something in between a 1660 Super or a 1660 Ti, maybe even an RTX 2060, depending on the game you play and if you want competitive frame rates. But even on a 1650 Super and a Ryzen 5 1600, and a 1600X, some of the tests I've done here recently put you in a position to where if you had a 120 hertz monitor or 144 hertz monitor, you are in the realm of really taking advantage of your monitor's refresh rate. Okay, but when you're shopping on the used market, it's important to note too that with Ryzen, when you're shopping for a Ryzen CPU, I just want to note any AMD CPU for the most part, right? This is applicable, but when you're shopping for a Ryzen CPU, it's good to always either ask for a picture with the pins, which if you have to ask, that should be concerning on from the first hand because you as a builder, if you remove that CPU from the socket, then you understand the delicacy of handling those pins and how once they're bent, they're pliable. They're easy to bend, right? It doesn't take much. Once you bend them back, they're really difficult. It's really challenging to bend them back upright and do it without breaking them, right? I've watched tech tubers do it online. It is a delicate surgery. It is delicate surgery, and one you really want to try to avoid. And so when you're buying, it's happened to me. I've almost sent money over through PayPal until last minute. I say, by the way, can you send some pictures of the pins? And one seller did send me a picture, and it had like 3 or 4 bent pins. And I told him, I said, well, you know, I can't do much with that. I'm interested in trying to bend pins on a CPU that's going to cost me $120. It was a Ryzen 5 2600X too, and I said I don't want to bend the pins back. Um, thank you for your interest and good luck with selling the CPU. But had I done that, then I'd have been livid, but it would have been my own vault. And that's a little Easter egg from a personal favorite movie of mine. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Tricion says, "All right, that's great, man. I'll ask you for some advice for sure. All right." It says, "If I'm going to hop back on the grind when I find something to make content about, I'll do it properly." Absolutely. I mean, it's very important. Um, it's very important to when you want to create content is that you're definitely passionate about whatever it is, and you say I can stick with this indefinitely for the long run. Tricion follows up, says, yeah, man, that's going to be a great place to start out building. The used market is going to be really filled with cheap but good hardware the next couple months. And now, yeah, and that's what I suspect too. Even with RTX 3080s, once they are back available in stock, or for example, 1080 Ti users, like, are we going to see 1080 Ti's now under $200, under be like 220, 249? I suspect so. I really do, especially with the price to performance that Nvidia is toting with the RTX 3070, right? we did talk about that GPU on, I believe it was last week's live stream or a couple videos ago. Either way, we talked about the RTX 3070, and Nvidia is claiming, slightly faster performance, faster than an RTX 2080 Ti, which was 1100. I have an RTX 2080 Ti lying around here somewhere, and that is going to make selling a 1080 Ti at anything over 249, $300. It's really going to make it a difficult buy. Tricia says, yeah, bro, last minute double check. Dr. Elo says, happy Saturday, my brother. What's up, cuz? Right? Bienvenido. Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you as always. All right. We're just talking about some Zen 3. Zen 3 launch. And Dr. Elo, I know you have a Ryzen based system. I heard you share it with me on your live stream. And I believe you had an 8 core 16 thread CPU. I can't remember the SKU number exactly. I want to say it was a 3700 you have, 3800. But we're talking Zen 3, brother, because you're on the AM4 socket as well. And, AMD has just put upon us a abundance of performance, 19% more IPC. This is translated to 26% on average at 1080p, right? And they did test it against the i9 10900K, which is a 10 core 20 thread, and versus their CPU, which had their CPU which had a core advantage. So it is something to consider. But still, either way, it still performed slightly better with more cores in gaming. Um, Demetrius says you should set up a meetup maybe once COVID-19 clears. It's funny you say that because I share a little bit of behind the scene news. Right before COVID hit, I did want to do a creator summit here locally at either a library. That way, it's free. It's no there's no strings attached. And if I did hold like a a creators conference, then it'd be a little bit more private, a little bit more formal. But it is something I definitely wanted to do. Just something just very small, very local that can just help inspire other creators. If even if you're a business owner like yourself, Demetrius, or other business owners, how you can really take your business to the next level with creating online video, and especially with YouTube, because it gives you this opportunity to reach a target audience, a niche specific audience, right? Like Demetrius, you build websites, so I don't want to go into a creator section, a creator conversation, but Demetrius, you create websites, so your niche may be, software developers and other companies who want to build, websites. So all your videos will be centered around, website creation and just how to optimize your website and things of that and related content. Dr. Elo says yes, 3700X. So yeah, that is an 8 core 16 thread CPU, and AMD AMD is saying users on Zen 2, like yourself, can expect up to like 26 to 28% more performance in your gaming workloads, and up to well, with the 5900X was 50, like up to 59 or 56% more performance. But with the 5900 or the 5800X, you're looking at a 26% performance boost with this IPC increase. Now, prices have gone up. Like I believe the 3700. Let me jump to my prices here. Uh, first we gotta switch back here, right? And not there. 3700X. When it launched, it was 329. All right, so the 3700X was 329. That is an 8 core. It's a fantastic CPU. Like hands down, it's a fantastic CPU. And for this price right here, it's very much still a good buy. I said I wanted to look at the 9900K, which too is an 8 core 16 thread CPU. And I would have to likely go in the used market, although here at Micro Center they're selling, brand new 9900Ks for about 369, 369. And on the used market, it's like $20 lower. So very much still a higher price entry with going with the 9900K, but the 3700X provides incredible value for money with its 8 cores and 16 threads. It's only slightly slower slower than a 3800X. Only slightly slower. The 3800X is just a slightly better bin chip. That is it. Tech 215 says, I'd be down to do that. Let's do it, man. Yeah. Trust me, once I mean COVID is slowly starting to clear up. Um so I'm hoping that once things change, we can kind of start I can start planning that a little bit more. Definitely be sure to follow me, Tech 215, over at Twitter, right? Likely that'll be kind of where most of the news kind of spurs out from there. Although it will be a local based thing. And if you're not yet a member of my email list, I hate to do this shameless plug, right? But this is important. Joining the email list is important for reasons like that. Rather, I have a new build series coming up, or I plan on publishing a ebook that's going to help with tangible tips and tricks, some of the tips and tricks I've learned, and also on top of notifying you of events like that. Rather that even if it is virtual, right? Or if we can have it in person, or even if it's a hybrid of both, which will likely be the case. And that way, we can still represent, and we can still include our online friends and those who still maybe wouldn't want to make it or who wouldn't be as comfortable with making it. It's all good. It's all gravy. It's all gravy, is like they would say was growing up. But you should definitely sign up for our email list. It's totally free. Okay, it's down in the description box, aka the basement. I don't want you to do it now because I much prefer you hang out here, chill on the live stream, right? But after the live stream, jump down in the description box or the pinned comment. I normally leave it there in all the videos. Jump down to the pinned comment or description box and sign up for our email list. I promise you to never spam your inbox. And here as it stands, we will likely only start sending out 1 to 2 emails a month. One is just an overall future content outlook as an exclusive email member here to Inside the Lab, and two, just like any kind of prevalent news and updates. For example, like the possible Creator Summit, where I would definitely like to share some tips and strategies that could help you start your career as a tech creator, or just not a tech creator, just as a content creator, or as a developer, an application developer, a game developer. Say you want to freelance, outsource. Myron says he's down. Tech 215 says he's down. Yeah, I mean it's just great, even if in the spirit of wanting to just come in and help out or just network, and really kind to introduce our generation. Like Myron knows, we're all about introducing our generation. If you're like in the 30 plus club, like myself and Myron, I mean we're all for keeping up with what's relevant right now and all the opportunities that we have to either generate extra income or supplemental income, enjoy the hobbies we all love, like PC gaming, which is not cheap. It is not a cheap hobby. Oh my gosh. PC gaming is great, but it is not a cheap hobby by any means. But financial freedom is really about doing what you want with your time, not how many numbers are in your bank account. That's in my opinion. Tech 215 says, I'm psyched because I'm close to 1,000 subs. Congratulations. I'll check your content out after this live stream. Says Tech 215 says, I'm psyched. It's been a lot of hard work, but I'm down, dude. Us local guys got to stick together. Yeah, he says he's 36. Um, I'm I'll be 35 this year. I'll be 35 this year. But you're right. And I always imagine that I've participated in a few virtual summits. I've met Dr. Elo, is another fellow creator in the POV Society, brethren. I've met really good online people at virtual summits. And Dr. Elo, he's not far. He's not close, but he's not far. We talked about that, right? He was 45 minutes to an hour up my way, I believe, last weekend, and he was out eating with his family. But they uh they they have they virtual summits, if you will. They have this uncanny ability to connect you with people. Like I've met and talked to so many people during the People of Video Society virtual summit, which was a summit for content creators. Rather, if you were already creating content or you're not sure, you wanted to grow, learn additional tips and tricks. That's where I was. I wanted to just learn. I wanted to level up, and I'm like a sponge. I always want to be learning. But I, I, I mean, I personally, uh, Ron Richard says, great live tea. I got to get back to work. I very much enjoyed it. I'll try to make the next one. Definitely, definitely, Myron. Thanks for stopping by, man. Try to have a good day at work, and go call me later or shoot me a text later. All right, I'd love to rap with you. Um, Triceon says, yeah, your email list is not spamming at all. It's great because notices are definitely broken on YouTube. I know, and Triceon, Ivan, thanks for bringing that to my attention. It is another way I do want to inform the audience of new uploads and upcoming live streams in case the YouTube notifications don't go out or they go out a little later. So you can maybe that second. I don't want to send out like an email a week as I'm trying to get back into a 2 a week upload schedule and about like a 10 video a month content schedule. I don't necessarily want to send out an email every time I upload a video, but in the monthly update, which will likely come at like maybe the second to third week in the month. Um, so I mean, somewhere in between there, I would notify the audience of upcoming videos and just to make sure you've all seen you've all seen the notifications for the video. Thunder says happy Saturday. What's up, son? Happy Saturday to you too. Shout out to Thunder in the chat. He's my kid. And Ron Richards says Tech 215. I love the Mill Summit. I've attended every year. I have to look into that. I'm not familiar with it. So that's something. Okay, because Tech 215 says that's what's up. I'm freelance video editor for King Media, and I handle all the Millennial Summit videos. It's good stuff. That's awesome. That's something we definitely would like to talk about more. Okay, to Tech 215. So again, over on. Be sure to link with me over on the Twitter at Inside the Lab YT. And I see we have a few more people who've joined in. Again, if you're just joining in, we're talking about Zen 3. We're talking about possible upgrade paths, right? If you are currently on the AM4 socket or currently rocking a Ryzen CPU, let us know in the chat. I know we know we have a few Ryzen users here in the chat, right? A 3700X user, two 3700X users, I think. I mean, let us know in the chat what Ryzen system are you using, or are you using an older, Intel CPU, like a fourth generation, fifth generation, second generation? I was browsing some group comments and like some of the computer tech groups. I am in them. I normally don't engage in them, but I do like to read some of the comments. I do lurk in them, but I am there. I am there, whole government and all. Um, but there I saw a few 2600K users, and oh, I'm sorry, yeah, Tech 215 says 3800X. That was a CPU I wanted to jump on. Like I was like, I'm ready for an 8 core. I'm ready to up the load from six, up the cores from 6 to 8, right? Just speed up the render time, speed up the encode times. And I see the Mr. Zombified. Welcome. What's happening, fam? Welcome to the live stream. I believe this is the first time. Excuse me. I believe this is the first time we had the opportunity to chat and talk. Welcome to the live. I do appreciate you being here this Saturday. And he says he's using a 2600X, the better bend Zen Plus 6 core. Nice. What GPU, what graphics card, Tech 215 and the Mr. Zombified. If you can, tell me down in the chat what GPUs you're currently paired and what resolution do you play in. I am a 3440 1440p fan myself. I love the resolution, 100 hertz. I would like maybe to up to like 120 or 144, but I am a big fan, no pun intended, of the ultra Q, ultra wide, quad ultra wide display format, and the extra pixels and the extra monitor real estate really just adds this immersive experience to the games I play, and almost all of them support the resolution. And games like Madden here recently, I played Madden. Like I am a football fan. All the football sports have kind of been a hot mess with everything going on. But I've played Madden. You saw Ron Richards was here on the chat. So a longtime buddy of mine I grew up with. We played Madden, constantly played Madden. It's going back and forth playing Madden all the time. And I play Madden on its monitor resolution, and it's just amazing the extra field it gives, and the refresh rate just creates this smooth experience with the adventure games I play for example, like The Witcher 3. And I'm also playing Assassin's Creed Origins. I'm trying to truck through it. That's another game that could take up a lot of time. But I am trying to get caught up for Valhalla. All right, let me jump back over to the chat. Tech205 says to Ron. Myron says, yeah, that's awesome, bro. Lots of good stuff. Well, when you watching the vids, just know your boy edited the video. Thanks for subbing too. Awesome. So we're seeing some networking going on in the chat. That's what's up. That's what's up. And Mrs. Zombify says, thank you. You're certainly, again, you're welcome, bro. Definitely welcome. Glad, always good to have members of the community join in for these weekly live streams. I do try to make them, with substance and just context, but it's also an opportunity for me to hang out and socialize in a live aspect with members here in the audience. Trisan says he's on an X570 right now with a 3600X. I know. I mean, I remember when I first saw your system, man. Your system looks really good, and trust me, the 3600X going to be relevant for a very long time, right? It's only 2 to 3, 4 frames, man, slower than an 8700K, and an 8700K even right now is still a viable gaming chip. And the X570, you future-proof yourself on that chipset. He says he's definitely noticing a CPU bottleneck in competitive games, so whenever it's really becoming an issue, I would probably upgrade in a year or two. Okay, yeah, so you're going to look for that, like the stronger IPC. But again, on that X570 chipset, you'll have, you're in a position. I know you've updated your BIOS. I'm gonna assume on that one, but I know you updated your BIOS. But you'll be able to just plop a 5900X, or a 5800X, and you'll be good to go. You get that, you get that get the benefits of that extra PCIe. Also get or not extra PCIe, get the benefits of the extra IPC, but also get the benefits of PCIe 4.0. Tech215 says the GTX 1070, but I think I'm going to get the 3070 when it comes out. I want to get a vinyl cutter first because enjoy doing mods. Yeah, mods are dope. It's something I like watching, but I don't like doing. Right? I don't, I appreciate, you know, me personally, I appreciate the component or part like in their factory design, but modding is cool, and it's just one of those things that makes being having a custom PC fun. Like it really is. And a GTX 1070, I have one here in the lab, and ironically, my daughter uses it to play her games. It is extremely overkill because all she plays is Roblox. But the 1070 is a great 1080p, like 75, 100 hertz, you know what I mean? Or even it's a very capable 1440p card and can handle 4K and maybe low settings. So it's a good card, and I think though the 1072, once prices drop, I want to do more content with that graphics card because um, once the 3070 drops, I just imagine all 10 series cards used prices, they're going to drop significantly on there. They're going to drop significantly. The Mr. Zombify says 580, an RX 580. Polaris card, nice. Plus 4K TV works good for me. Yeah, I mean the RX 580 I stood by that card when it first came out, and I know when it first came out, if I stand corrected, there was a supply and demand issue with it, right? I mean, the demand for that card was so high because of the performance it was going to offer at 1080p and even 4K, right? And it's still, I mean, it's aged really well. I think the 580 has aged really well. And 4K, if 4K is awesome. 4K is awesome. PVW says still using the i5 7500. Yeah, and I tell you what, I know we talked about on last week's live stream Q, that you were getting ready to move out and head overseas, but it's probably, you can even look at a 3400G. Remember we talked about that and upgrading. But either way, if you do jump to Ryzen, you uh you definitely want to make sure you're jumping in on that X570 chipset, especially if you're going new. But 4 cores, 4 threads can still get the job done, just for gaming, like just for 1080p gaming. Tech215 says Madden is the only game I play. Man, bro, you speak my language. Go Birds. Oh, I hope that's Dirty Birds. I hope that's Atlanta, cause yeah, I'm an Atlanta Falcon fan. True and true. Although we ain't been right since the Super Bowl, since Tom Brady. That Atlanta has not been right. I don't know what they're waiting for, and I don't want to detract too much, but I really just expect them to just let Dan Quinn go. Maybe maybe Arthur Blank will let Thomas Dimitrov go, and they should just try to trade off and let go of Matt Ryan's contract and maybe target the next quarterback of the future. But yeah, I hope that's Atlanta. It says 0 and 4. Yeah, we talking about Atlanta. Yeah, yeah. I don't. I mean, after 0 and 4, it's gonna be too hard to come up, and especially our division is just way too competitive. Dr. Elo says I sent you a message via Twitter for a new idea. Awesome. Yeah, I definitely will head over there after the live stream. I definitely do appreciate that, Dr. Elo. I wanna see what we got brewing. I know I would love to get on with you and Andrew, or just me and you, or me and Andrew, whatever. I like for us to either do a three-way. So I'll check that out. Triceon says, "Thanks, man. I spent a lot of time in choosing parts and managing my budget, and yeah, I updated it. That's good. I mean, that's one thing I highly recommend. I highly recommend users do, whether they're building themselves or they're not. I don't care if you're even going with a vendor, or if you're local and you hire somebody like myself to build it. Still research your parts. I can't stress that enough. It is so important. It doesn't matter if you're building it. Don't don't have the approach that, well, I'm not building it. What, I just want a game. No, you still want to know what your motherboard is, how much RAM, what's the cache latency, what's your chipset, how many cores your CPU have, what's the TDP, what's your cooling solution. All these things you still want to research and know. Okay, especially when it comes down to the 80 plus power efficiency rating of your power supply. It's very important. Um, Dr. Elos sent me a message, and Triceon says, "Thanks, man. Yep, we got that." Triceon says, "My little brother plays Roblox on an RX 570. Before that, he was using my old 1050, and that's overkill too." Yeah, I mean, either one of those cards. I mean, RX 570 means Roblox. Don't quote me on this, but you could probably run it on integrated graphics. Even Intel's shady integrated graphics. You could probably get away with on even at 1080p. He said Tech 215 says, yeah, 0 and 4. He says, oh no, Eagles fans, yeah, they need to rebuild. Ah, I not a big fan of the Eagles fans, but you're from Philly, so that's cool. That is what it is. But I know we have another friend here locally. He's another local content creator, right? I'd imagine he'd probably want to join the Creative Summit when we do hold it here locally. And keep in mind too, for my friends on the replay, and for those of you here on the live stream, just because you're not here locally does not mean you will be excluded. We will find a way to include you when we do have that, even if it is in the form of a super long form live stream, which we do tend to do here. I know they're not commercially viable for replays because they're practically like watching a movie, but I do try to squeeze in value throughout the live stream. So, I do appreciate you being here. But yeah, new Eagles fan. I mean, Eagles too. It might be time for them to consider alternative options than Carson Wentz, but we'll see. Triceon says I'm gonna play a tournament with my bro. It was fun being here for a little bit. Good luck with the stream, man. Yeah, I do appreciate you stopping by, Ivan. I know it's been a while since I've seen you, and I'll talk to you. I know we're connected on Twitter, so I'll talk to you over there. And again, if you're new here to the live stream, we're just, I mean, we're still very much full in it, right? I mean, we're rocking and rolling. If you're just joining us, be sure to either give the stream a like on your way in or your way out. Tell me where you're watching from. I'm located here in Maryland, the United States of America, right on the East Coast here in Maryland. I'm here in Maryland. It's a beautiful Saturday. It's a little gloomy, but that's okay because it's what I call good gaming weather. And on the subject of gaming, right? Back to where I want to upgrade my rig, because with my editing rig, it doubles as my gaming rig. And again, I use a 6 core 12 thread Coffee Lake, and 8700K. It can do. I talked about this on last week's live stream. It can do 5.2 gigahertz, all cores, all threads. Right. The voltages will be a little high. Temps will be a little high. And I'm only on a 240 millimeter Corsair HV2 AIO. So I would like to maybe go 360 millimeter. Like if I went with an i9 9900K, I'll give a little bit of spoiled build notes. But if I did go with an i9 9900K, I would almost indefinitely definitely upgrade the cooling solution. from a 240 mil to a 360 mil AIO. I still don't want to go, custom. I don't want to go on a loop quite yet because uh, I do plan, maybe within the next year, a relocation. Not like a far one. Like I'll still be here in the same state, but I do plan on growing, right? Growing that way I can have and create just a super dedicated space to create content. And I wanted to wait until then before I do a custom loop. But custom loops do have their advantages, especially when you're running a chip as hot and toasty as the soldered 9900K. But that is an 8-core 16-thread CPU, right? Much like Dr. Elo's and Tech 215's 3800X and 3700X respectively. The 9900K has slightly better single core performance, so it does make it slightly better or slightly faster in gaming performance. But here we go with Zen 2. AMD AMD is said to have fixed that with their performance gains. With their performance gains. One thing I find interesting is the like this it's double digit increases across the board with the exception of Battlefield 5. And this is again with a 5900X, a 12 core 24 thread CPU at 1080p. I like to imagine that those cores must be highly efficient to be able to be fast enough to output those frames for 1080p gaming. Now it is important to note that at 1080p, it's a balanced load where the CPU is very much a factor, right? At that resolution, it'll calculate anything that has to do with high forms of math, so like any algebra, geometry, things of that nature, AI, simulations. That is going to tax the CPU first, right? And it still has to play a part in rendering the frames. So this is why you see when you're increasing your graphic settings, right? You're also introducing like higher input lag. Now, literally to break it down is the up in the resolutions, you're making the pixels sharper. So now it's taking longer to render, right? So this is why you're not getting as many frames. But this is astonishing because a 12 core, 12 core 24 thread CPU is is providing a phenomenal gaming experience, and it's really going to help with your content creation workflow, like AMD has said, right? 50% uplift from previous generation. That's the 3900X, which I'm interested to see what those prices would drop down to, right? Like right now you can get a 3900X for $400. I imagine that's going to change, especially once Zen 3 is here. It will be here November 5th. Okay. I'm going to talk about that here a little bit more, but it'll be here November 5th. And so will the new content around Zen 3. But I'm not leaving Zen Plus and Zen 2 in the whim. If there's going to be users out there who are like Dr. Elo or that are like Tech 215, Tricion with a 3600X, and I believe Mr. Zomba 5 with a 2600X, those CPUs can flood the market with an incredible amount of price to performance because 20 I mean while not new, I mean they don't have any new, but let's jump over to eBay really fast and see how much a Ryzen 5 2600X is going for right now. So $169. That is amazing price to performance, especially if you say you want to pair it with a higher end chipset, like you want to invest in the X570 chipset now. You have you can jump into an X570, the Asus Tough X570 motherboard. Great price. I mean, you won't get PCIe 4.0 because the Zen Plus doesn't have the input output structure for PCIe 4.0. So that's something to consider. But you can go with either a higher end X570 motherboard and say, you know what, no matter what, I know I want to start my content, or I want to game at respectable frame rates. I also possibly want to stream. going with 6 cores and definitely is going to help you accomplish that. Going with the newer chipset are going to give you increased memory support, right? Better latency, but something to consider, right? Because the 2600X going for $169, that's a really that's some amazing value there, and even a little lower if you're willing to go used. Let's see if this user has pictures of the pins. Ah, we talked about earlier on the live stream. A good seller, a reputable seller, you won't have to ask for a picture of the pins, but you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how often they don't. But with a reputable seller, you don't have to ask for a picture of the pins. They'll have a clear center here, as you can see without that. It wants to pop up. But as you can see, there's no bent pins. You would instantly notice if there was a pin bent. It would just be like skewed to the left. So, but I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's amazing value. $139, 6 cores, Zen plus CPU. Yeah, Zen 3. It's faster. It has more IPC, but it's going to come at a higher price point. Even for the 5700X, which is a now a $300 CPU, right? $300 CPU is about $140 more than a 2600X and a 3700. Let's go back to even a 3700X, which is $279. So you can get an X570 motherboard and maybe a used Zen CPU and upgrade later to Zen 4 to a Zen 4 CPU because I'm going to go ahead and call it now. Yes, Zen 4 will be supported on the 500 series chipset, and also it likely won't go. The Zen 4 likely won't be compatible with 400 series chipsets motherboards either. Like there, AMD is switching to a 5 nanometer node. I honestly will just, I mean, you gotta compliment their engineers for what they've been able to accomplish by shrinking the node and keeping it on the same socket for as long as they have. Let me jump back into the chat. Let's see. Demetrius says, "Yeah, it's Delaware. Yep, another Delaware native." Again, my high school, my alma mater is William Penn High School. I went to Byard Elementary. A little bit of lab history. I went to Byard Elementary in Wilmington, Kirk Middle School, and William Penn in between there, something like that. Mr. Zombified says AMD has been killing it lately, upgrading, upgrade him coming. I'm sure. Yeah, they have. I mean, they've just been flooding the market with price to performance. In my honest opinion, like they're not even like crappy chips at this point. You just gotta commend AMD for what they've accomplished, and some of these used prices here, where the CPU on the used market, if you're comfortable with going with eBay, going with Facebook Market can really vary because I understand that sellers, it could very much depend on your area, wherever you are, or if you're able to travel, can you go to another state? I normally on the Facebook Marketplace don't go past like 10, 20 miles at that point. The savings, whatever I'm buying, it really won't save me that much money if I can just drive to Micro Center and get it. So I don't want to go further. I don't want to have to go further than I would have to if I would just say go into a Micro Center. It would have to be like a really, really, really good deal, which I will say I'm a little saddened because I was doing a PC part hunt and somebody locally here was selling a 3800X for $225. And it was 2 days before, AMD was set to announce AMD was set to announce Zen 3, but I let it slip past me and they ended up selling it. But that's a really good deal, like $225 for an 8 core. Tech25 says, I got to roll, bro. Awesome chatting with you guys. I'll get in touch with you on Twitter. Take care. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for stopping by. Connect with me on Twitter. Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, if you're here on the live stream, if you just joined in, tell us what's going on in the chat. We're talking, as you can see, we're talking Zen 3. We're talking, what I want to upgrade to, the value Zen's going to have now on a used market. Do you go with an X370 chipset, a used X370 chipset, which if I were to jump here back to eBay and let me see how much an X370 motherboard is going for now on the used market. So about $100. That's still not bad. It's still not bad. As Zen 2 is compatible, right? So with a microcode with the BIOS update, you still can get phenomenal, performance in both gaming and content creation at a lower entry point. If you don't want to go use, or if you're like, if you really, really, really need to be, um, con- conscious with uh, how much money you have to spend. Like if your budget is super fixed, I see advice questions all the time. And in my opinion, if somebody says, "Hey, I want to build a system, but I have a budget of like $500," if that's your budget, then dude, that's your budget. Doesn't make sense to say, "Well, if you get $700 more, you can get a insert X upgrade component." No, no. Just if your budget is $600, you build and buy around the budget. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. I see counter arguments added to it. Well, oh, that's dumb. Don't get a Ryzen, a 526. Just get an Intel for $100 more. Maybe that person can't afford $100 more, and they want to build their system now. Saving up money takes time. So 2 to 3 months. I mean, that's a long wait. In the computer world, that's a long wait. You don't want to wait, say, another 3 months when you have the money. You have everything to just get started now. And I say $600 because that's the direction consoles are consoles are heading in. So that's going to kind of be the entry point, in my opinion, going forward. A PC with a dedicated graphics card. We did a live stream last week's live stream, which if you're into long form live stream replays, live last week's live we built a PC that was about $400 to $450 that didn't have a dedicated graphics card. It was based off the Ryzen 3400G or 3200G APU, but still very much an X470 motherboard. So again, it's all about it's all about going with what you have for the moment, in my honest opinion. Dr. Elo says you can always buy open box, secondhand, used, etc. Yeah, absolutely. And I know Micro Center has a very robust um, open box like program where they do accept returns, and I believe Best Buy as well, but don't quote me on that. But buying open box sometimes, I've worked in retail when I was younger. Buying open box sometimes literally means somebody bought it and you can't put it back on the shelf as new. So they have to put it on the shelf as literally open box. Maybe somebody bought it and it didn't fit my case, or bought a graphics card. I didn't have the right power supply for it, so they got to bring it back. Or anything that they've opened. Say they ran into they ran into a part compatibility issue. Buying open box, you can save some really good money and either pocket that savings or put it towards like faster storage, say like an NVMe M.2 or an SSD, right? For my hard drive fans out there. And so in secondhand use, yeah. And that's one thing we've always I try to advocate here on the channel a lot, and that is the benefits of going, of jumping on the used market and finding that used price to performance and just being a used PC tech enthusiast, because you can save some money. And I hate to be cliche, but one man's trash can be another man's treasure, or a lady's treasure, what have you. However you want to slice it, somebody could have already exhausted the value from that component or system, and they're ready to upgrade, and you haven't. You're like a step lower between them. So the upgrade you would get from getting those parts of that system you know, would be huge compared to somebody saying, "Well, I've had a 2600X, and now I'm just ready for a 5800X." But if you've had like a fourth generation Intel, right, or something to that extent, or FX Pile Driver series CPU, or old Phenom CPU, I mean, there could be some really good value. That'd be a really great upgrade. And Dola Jackson, What's happening, fam? I believe we talked on the chat. I believe this is the first time I had the opportunity of chatting with you here live. Thanks for joining in on the live stream. And Dola says, I return a perfectly fine HP Omen 10750H, the gaming laptop, 1660 Ti. Open box, return it to build a PC instead if it's 769 after. Yeah, see, so perfect example. They they literally just couldn't put that back on the shelf um, as new, and you brought it back, and nothing was wrong with it. Other simply, it's just touched somebody $30, say $100 plus savings. Now that went to that person, so it's a win-win. Yeah, the retailer loses a little bit of money, but they've already account for that. They've already planned for that. Dr. Elo says my PC is almost all open box from Micro Center. It's all good, man. Listen, that just means you saved a lot of money. You saved a lot of money. And generally with PC parts, they're so proprietary. So long as they're not, you don't get them a spill or something spills on them and they're wet and it's on. See, computer parts can get wet. They just can't get wet while they're on, or they can't get turned on while they're wet. But believe it or not, computer parts can get wet. It can be exposed to water. Um, And Dola Jackson says it's how I got the 3950X. I got it from a custom looper that was trying to hit 4.5. They brought 5 apparently. Since I'm using AIO, I got it for a steal. Wow. Wow, that's interesting. They bought 5 3950Xs. I guess they were really trying to get the right bin. Like they were going for that 4.5 gigahertz all core, I imagine, which if they got 4.4 all cores, it's really good, in my opinion. But wow, yeah. At that point, when they have bought so many, I mean, I'm interested to know how much you picked it up for. But either way, that's a really good deal. They probably would have been able to let it go since they have bought so many. Mrs. Amify says BIOS update for X470 motherboards not until January. I heard for the new CPUs. Got you. Yeah, and you know what? Thanks for sharing that too, Mr. Zombified, because that's one thing I was reading into that it's only going to be on select few 400 series motherboards, and I imagine that when AMD first released the statement, and I'm going to talk about this here in Monday's live stream. So, another shameless plug: if you're not yet subscribed, hopefully during this live stream, I've earned your subscription. I've either been entertaining, educational, or helpful enough to earn your subscription with that notification bell so you can catch uploads like the one I'm going to drop Monday afternoon for our Monday. Monday is a normal upload day for us for our vlogs, but I'm going to talk about this in further detail in Monday's video because yeah, it's only going to be on the select few 400 series motherboards, and AMD originally changed their position on it, and they did say that it was going to take a little while for them to roll that out because originally it wasn't planned. They also have to take into consideration not all 400 series, especially the B series, not all 400 series chipsets have the appropriate amount of microcode, you know, to take on another BIOS update. So we'll see. That's something I will keep my eyes peeled to on the ground to see when some of these 400 series motherboard BIOS updates will start dropping and which select few 400 series motherboards will support Zen 2 or sorry Zen 2. I keep wanting to say Zen 3, but we all know why. We all know why. I just want to add with CPU part, the naming schemes, they've been confusing in the past, but here they've been a little more streamlined. But AMD decided to announce Zen 1 1000 series, Zen Plus 2000 series, Zen 2 3000 series slash 4000 series, Zen 3 now 5000 series. So that's why they can get a little tricky. But yeah, we will keep our eye out for that. And Dola says not going to overclock severely. Yeah, with the 3950X, like unless you were trying to like just flex with the Cinnabon score, you probably don't really need to. It's probably going to turbo on maybe the fastest two cores, like the fastest 2 cores or 3 cores or even 4 cores for a 16 thread. It'll turbo on the fastest cores to get the best possible, single thread performance out of all of those cores, depending on the application you're using. But yeah, if it's probably best not to overclock that CPU, right? It's what I would recommend too, especially if you weren't trying to go for any records. That's a lot of cores, and cooling can get really tricky, really tricky. Which I'm surprised. I will say I'm surprised we didn't even get a mention of Threadripper, right? Like where's Threadripper? Where was Threadripper? So entire time. And if you're not sure, if you're not familiar with the Threadripper platform, that's AMD's HEDT platform. That's their high-end desktop platform, or their X399 and their TRX40 chipsets. Right, the X399 was for the first and second generation of Threadripper CPUs, and the TRX40 was for the third generation of Threadripper CPUs, and they came offering an insane amount of cores and these massive CPU dies, 64 cores, 128 threads, 32 cores, 64 thread CPUs. First generation had more SKUs, but I've noticed that they scaled back on, say, I believe it was the Threadripper 1900X, which was an 8-core 16-thread CPU, which existed in a really weird place because at the time AMD had an 8-core 16-thread CPU. So I guess they were trying to justify quad channel memory, which has its perks in some workloads. Chris Christoph Stuckup, which if I've butchered your name, I sincerely apologize. But Christoph says, I wonder if Zen 3 will support faster memory like 4,000 megahertz dropping dropping the F clock. The F clock. I imagine the you mean the Infinity Fabric speed? Is that what you're referring to, Christoph? I mean, I expect the X570 chipset to support memory past 4,000 megahertz, in my honest opinion, especially Zen 3. I really do, but I I don't know if that means you also have to manually overclock the Infinity Fabric. That way, you don't have to deal with any latency issues with, say, running your running an XMP or running a custom memory overclock of, say, a 4200 4000, let's say 4000 megahertz, right? The Infinity Fabric on AMD CPUs also have a clock speed. It's normally half of the whatever the memory frequency is, which, depending on the CPU generation, doesn't go past 1600 megahertz. I believe anything past 1600 megahertz, either the coupled memory frequency with the Infinity Fabric frequency will either decouple, and so you can run the higher XMP, but you'll run the Infinity Fabric, if you don't overclock it, will remain the same. But Zen 3 almost definitely will support faster memory. I I think 3600 for Zen 3 will be a sweet spot. 3600 megahertz with really tight timings would be a healthy a healthy memory speed. If you're just gaming, 16 gigabytes of 3600 megahertz memory, it's going to be more than fast enough. If you're doing other things like maybe streaming and gaming, you do want to up that to 32 gigabytes, maybe even dropping your RAM down to 3200 megahertz across the board would give you better better reduced memory input lag. I'm sorry. But I am surprised. That was one of the biggest shocks too from the keynote. Was there was no like overt a mention of faster memory support was in 3. And that could also be AMD could also be leaving that the uh to their board manufacturers as well too. But it's one of the benefits of going with an X570 motherboard. It's one of the it's almost worth it at that point. We'll jump back here and take a look at a few X570 motherboards. You have your high end, and then you have your a little over $200, which is this is a B550 motherboard. But going with the X570 chipset is almost certainly going to give you, excuse me, it's going to give you better memory support, especially for any custom memory overclocks. Definitely. But that really remains to be seen. It is something I definitely plan on testing with Zen 3 myself. And that's why I said even if I don't use it for my personal build, right? Even if I go with, say, the 9900K, go with a secondhand 9900K, which because I don't game at 1080p, I'm more GPU bound. That's something we talked about um, in some other live streams. The resolution I play at is more dependent on the graphics card I use and the amount of VRAM. So my CPU only really becomes a factor when I'm doing, when I'm encoding video and doing any kind of graphic manipulation work and things of that nature. And I part-time stream on Twitch and I use this system, but I do have other options. We still have, the core shredder build that's down in the lower section of the lab here, that's in the texting section. So we still have the Threadripper build, but I use Adobe Premiere, and Adobe Premiere can take advantage of the, Intel's integrated graphics to accelerate the rendering process. So that's why I tend to stick to Intel, the Intel platform for my video rig. But here soon, I do want a separate dedicated rig because it's looking like Zen 3 Ryzen 5000 is going to offer an insane amount of, um, just insane amount of performance at 1080p. If you're not ready to upgrade your resolution and say go to 4K or another popular resolution, 2560 by 1440p, right? So, I mean, if you're not ready to upgrade your resolution, but you still want high FPS, if you're a competitive gamer or you're looking or you're interested in getting the competitive scene, historically, that's always been Intel's playground. But now with Zen 3, AMD is catching up, and their their pricing, and I kind of predicted this on last week's live stream because I said, AMD wants to position. I said it's looking like AMD wants to before we even knew. Sorry to just kind of run on, but before we even knew what the pricing scheme was going to be, before we even knew, I said AMD likely wants to position themselves in a higher price point. They really don't just want to be the, you know, budget alternative, right? The 5950X, the 16 core, 32 thread Zen 3 CPU, coming in at $799. And then even the 5900X is going for what, 549, which that's not that bad actually for 12 core CPU, especially if your workflow could really truly benefit from those extra cores. So, I mean, that remains to be seen. And on top of that, AMD, Lisa Su did show us, the RX 6000, but the cooler had already leaked, but she did give us a little bit of information about that. It's averaging over 60 FPS at 4K. Looks like it's going to compete super heavy with the RTX 3080. I have been wanting to get my hands on a high end AMD graphics card. I almost bought the Radeon 7, which for those of you who know, you know why that's a good thing I didn't. But I almost bought the Radeon 7 because what 16 gigabytes of high bandwidth memory. I mean, come on. It sounded like a good thing until it came and it really wasn't. And I knew I should have been concerned when I found out we weren't going to get any add-in board variants. So should have knew something would have been up then. But Dr. Lisa Su did give us a little bit of a teaser to their upcoming October 28th Big Navi reveal. And I will likely do a live stream after that. I believe it's on a Thursday. I will likely do a live stream, the follow live stream to that keynote as well, to see, talk about what now happens with the used market on the GPU realm. Because I highly suspect that we will get more than one, more than one series of graphics cards on Big Navi. And Dola Jackson says the thermals of the 3080 founders has me really trying to hunt one down, especially now with that Best Buy news. Yeah, yeah. You know what? I had read the article too. Now with founders cards will now be offered at Best Buy stores and I believe e-tailers. And I mean the founders cards are always the better bid. Intel, 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 right? Intel was going to make graphics cards, but Nvidia always, you know, always offers the better bin GPUs first before they're adding board makers. So here, going with a reference card, you really can't go wrong, especially if you want to put it on a water block down the road, which is a little extreme, but you have the option. And usually you have better water block compatibility with reference cards. They're more the PCB is more across the board. The Mr. Zombified says, imagine imagine if what they showed was a 3070 equivalent. I know, right? I mean, check this out, Mr. Zombified. Imagine if what they showed was on the heels of a 3070, but half the price, right? 249. I don't know the exact naming scheme, but I'm gonna go ahead and try to call it now. But if we get say like a RX 6000 and we get like say a 6060 RX 6060, which is like really clunky, I guess. But if we get say like a RX like we got with the 500 series, like a 60, 70, and 80, they do the same thing with the 6000 series. I imagine it'll likely be priced with the 6080 being like high end somewhere over $600 or somewhere around there, five to $600, competing with an RTX 3080. So the AMD wants to undercut Nvidia, and then maybe a 6070 RX 6070 at 249, $300, and then a 6060 under $200. Like if we get that on that Navi die, on the big Navi die, it's really going to disrupt the lower end GPU market. But I talked about this on a couple live streams ago that Nvidia likes to step in when AMD does this, and Nvidia likes to step in and steal AMD's thunder. So you know, Jensen likely has the RTX 3070. Although I heard the 3070 Ti was scrapped. That's a rumor. Remember what I say about rumors? Rumors are rumors until proven otherwise. But Jensen likely has either indefinitely, and I kind of predicted this a few live streams back, but indefinitely like an RTX 3050, an RTX 3060, or possibly indefinitely an RTX 3080 Ti, and a 3080 Ti to try to either just still, big Navi's thunder, or offer more performance for a little bit more money, because Nvidia likes doing that too. But yeah, I mean, imagine if that 3070 was an equivalent, or if we do get a big Navi equivalent to a 3070, and it's like half the price of a 3070. One thing that is important to note that in AMD is finally bringing to the table um, hardware accelerated ray tracing. And if you're not familiar with ray tracing, it's what you see in it's the RTX branding at NVIDIA. NVIDIA didn't come up with ray tracing; they came up with the RTX moniker behind it. But ray tracing is a nutshell. It uses complex math to simulate lighting in as realistic situations and scenarios as possible. I did a video using Metro Exodus in the now already out Minecraft beta as an example of how this works, and a candle of an example of how real-time ray tracing works. Excuse me, and just how it increases the visuals of a game. It just makes it more lifelike. It necessarily doesn't make the graphics look better, but it does make the game feel more, like I said, make us feel more lifelike. Like light literally behaves in the game or whatever it'll have you. Let's say the game, right? Or gaming. This is a gaming specific channel, but I mean, light will behave in a realistic way that it does in real life. Right now, games use like rasterization techniques and same space screen reflections to get like reflections off a glass or off a puddle. It's like a hack, if you will. Whereas games that support DXR and that's ray tracing, games that support ray tracing, their games could then simulate using tensor cores. Is what AMD calls in their Turing cards and now Ampere using tensor cores to simulate light and to have the light behave in the way it would in real life. So you know in Battlefield 5, now Battlefield 5 is not the best example, but it's the most popular example. It's the one Nvidia showed at launch. It's not the best implemented version of ray tracing, which I'll tell you which is here in a second. But with Battlefield 5, you could see if you walked up to a car, you could actually see the reflection of your player. If you walked up to a glass window, you could see the reflection of everything behind you, shadows, everything like that. I mean, the game you have global illumination, which is my favorite, right? And that's what Metro Exodus uses. Metro Exodus before Control came out. Metro Exodus was the one of the best examples of ray tracing, in my honest opinion. Ray tracing just made Metro Exodus a totally different experience. Like if you play Metro Exodus, you know how some of the environments take you to like, super dark places, hard to see places, or you have very limited amount of light. Um, and just seeing light behave in these ways that it would in real life just changed the experience altogether. And Metro Exodus is one of my favorite games I've played here recently that are like story driven. And I came into the Metro Exodus or came into the Metro series very late. Like I didn't pay none of the previous installments. I just kind of did a refresher and jump right into Metro Exodus. But and then Fortnite has ray tracing. So if you uh if you have a turn card, right, so like a RTX 20 series, 2060 on up. If you have a turn card, you can download Fortnite. And you can get an idea how ray tracing works. Because Fortnite is free, so that's why I say that. But Fortnite has ray tracing in it now. And then I thought about uh, testing, testing ray tracing, but not at 4K, maybe at 3440 by 1440. Ray tracing, ray tracing is a burden on the system, but this is supposedly rectified with DLSS 2.0 and Ampere. And DLSS stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling, which it uses AI um, to like up the resolution, but it kind of creates like a slight blurry effect. I'm not a fan of DLSS. I personally prefer native resolution, but it's all about what matters to you the most during your gaming sessions. Do you need competitive frame rates? Or do you like to also have like a balance of playable frame rates, but also decent eye candy, like good graphics? Christoph says you could call me Chris, and I can't wait to see ray tracing in Cyberpunk 2077. All right, yeah, fair enough, Chris. Thank you. Um, yeah, Cyberpunk 2077. Ray tracing is what had me initially hyped for the game. I was like, all right, yeah, I like The Witcher 3. Who doesn't? It's kind of like if you didn't like the game, you're kind of in the minority. If you take 10 PC gamers, with decent, even low end to middle end systems, 10 gamers, at least 8 or 7, I'm going to tell you, they straight up enjoyed The Witcher 3. Um, and so once I saw that Cyberpunk was getting ray tracing. And once I found out it was getting global illumination ray tracing, I was super hyped. Why is global illumination important? Because the light is going to reflect, say, if the map is outside, then you would see light behave outside of that map the same way you would in real life. So if you're going down side of a building, parts of that street that are blocked off by the sunlight will have a shadow. They will have their own dedicated shadows. There are no big shadows. There are no like rasterization techniques to try to simulate reflections or what have you. The reflections are all being simulated real time. Hence real time ray tracing. It's phenomenal. I like graphics in games. I'm all about, games that look good, play good, and are smooth too. But ray tracing just took like took lighting in a whole totally different direction. And if it wasn't at the time because in terms of rasterization, 10 series graphics cards were still very much getting the job done, and they still very much can now. But as an early adopter of ray tracing, because I had an RTX 2080, while I still had two 1080 Ti's in the lab, the RTX 2080, I was an early adopter with ray tracing. I didn't get a founder's card though. Although kudos for Nvidia going with a 2x fan shroud, but I didn't get a founders. I went with the MSI Gaming X Trio RTX 2080 Ti. Beautiful graphics card, some awesome RGB and lighting. So I'm using now for my dedicated system. Although I do have an RTX 2080 Ti, but it's what I use for my dedicated system. And ray tracing was worth it. I still think it's worth it now, even if you maybe say you play at 1080p and you want to just maybe change your settings down, because again, ray tracing, it does consume some of your, it is a frame rate hit, like it really is a frame rate hit. But Cyberpunk 2077, that is really had my interest peaked in that game. Yeah, it looks like it's going to play good, and I'm a fan of sci-fi and just the world of Cyberpunk in general, and it being open world and like the gun gameplay. It's just really different. It's a very unique game. I really do look forward to playing it and seeing how it looks in both 4K and at my dedicated resolution of 3440 by 1440p. Or if I upgrade to say a 25, it's not really an upgrade. It's like a side grade. If I side grade to like a 2560 by 1440p, change the aspect ratio down, just kind of streamline it a little bit more. But either way, I am looking forward to how seeing ray tracing in that game, because it will support global illumination. So we're going to see real-time reflections on surfaces that that would that would produce a reflection. So like cars and the windows and just the lighting, because there's so much neon going on with 2070s Cyberpunk. They picked the right game to want to do it. I just really hope it's done right, because yeah, I am looking forward to that game. And I am going to do some content on that game, Chris. So if you haven't yet, if you haven't yet subbed to the channel, maybe earn your subscription during this live stream, because I do plan on doing some content around Cyberpunk 2077. Some budget builds and what have you. I see Dr. Elo says, "All right, cuz, I gotta go. Happy Saturday, brother." Yeah, same to you, Doc. Thanks for hanging out and stopping by. I'll check over and reach out to you on Twitter a little later today. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Mrs. Anvi says, "I wonder how much influence Microsoft and Sony engineering team had on AMD's GPUs." That's a good question. I mean, because they probably had a great deal of input, simply because everything about a console is all custom, right? Even the CPU and the GPU inside of consoles are custom chips, but they are based off of like the upcoming PS5 and Xbox Series X. They are based off of the Zen 3 architecture. So that's that's pretty awesome, you know, because you're gonna get all the low power efficiency, all those things. You're gonna get that with on your console. Although I did read a report that the Xbox Series X has some overheating issues, or it gets really hot. That remains to be seen. That remains to be seen. Like, I don't know what the cooling solution is in the Xbox. I haven't really looked at the stats enough. I use the Xbox Game Pass, so the really only console I would own is maybe like a Nintendo Switch refresh or a Nintendo Switch. But yeah, I would imagine, you know, Microsoft and Sony's engineers had to communicate extensively with like AMD's engineers as they created these custom parts for consoles, because consoles also run on custom OSs. So making sure the hardware is like optimized, making sure the hardware is super optimized for Microsoft, the Xbox OS and the PlayStation OS, likely required a lot of correspondence between AMD engineers and Microsoft and Sony engineers. Although the systems are very much similar, they are different. Like, they are slightly different. They really are. But either way, all good questions, all good questions. So, but either way, fam, listen, it's exciting times to be on the PC, to be a PC enthusiast, both new and used. There are plenty of options, both used and new. You can either go with a new build, upgrade your build, right? GPU and CPU. Now is the time, if you're on the fence, now is the perfect time to consider that upgrade you've been holding off in both the CPU and GPU. Now's the perfect time to consider that upgrade you've been holding off and really invest in your system. Invest in your gaming experience. If you're a content creator, invest in your future as a creator. Now is the perfect time to do so. And with that said, I think it's time for this ride. I think it's time for the ride to come to an end. The ride is definitely slowly coming to an end. I want to thank everybody who came on this week's live stream. Again, we do this every Saturday around this time, around noontime, EST, Eastern Standard Time. We do this every Saturday. Shout out to Dr. Elo, the Mr. Zombified, um, Andola Jackson, Chris Stuckup. Who else we have? I want to make sure we send off. I know Thunder, Tech 215 that was here. Demetrius, that's Chant 123. Right, Tricion, QVWU was here. So we had a lot of regulars and even some new faces. Ron Richards. Yeah. So, I mean, if this is your first time to this live stream, it's been fun. I enjoy this, doing this every week with you. I hope that during this live stream, if you haven't yet subscribed or if you truck through this super long live stream, I do appreciate it and you're here on the replay. Hopefully, during this live stream, I've been either educational enough, informative enough, helpful enough, entertaining enough to earn your subscription. We are well on our way to 2,100 subscribers and to our goal of 4,000 subscribers by the end of this year. With that said, thanks for joining on this live stream. I hope to catch you on the next live stream. So until then, be easy.